woman survives a brutal attack, only to die 5 years later.
It's sad because she survived the mugging, but now she's dead on that couch.
And now, Dr. G wonders if her death is somehow related to that assault.
Maybe she had severe brain trauma. Who knows?
Then, a man tumbles 15 feet to the ground.
They heard, whoa, and this guy falls off the ladder.
But Dr. G believes there may be more to this case than meets the eye.
Did he just slip and fall? Or did he have some kind of physical illness that affected him?
Altered lives, baffling medical mysteries, shocking revelations. These are the everyday cases of Dr. G, medical examiner.
I guess we started at 9. Dr. G?
Yeah.
When you're in charge of one of the busiest morgues in Orlando, Florida, some days it feels like the bodies just keep on coming.
They're dying like flies with that.
This has been an abnormal Abby day.
So it's no wonder that Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Jan Garavaglia has learned to multitask.
All right, let me finish hers, and then I'll come back. I'll be there in a second, Brian. Believe it or not, I'm juggling multiple cases at one time. Could we get this going? I think I left my ruler, my big ruler over here. I wish I could concentrate on one case and then not do anything else till it's done, but you know, they don't pay me for that. I gotta do multiple things at once. Doesn't make any sense at all.
But sometimes, Dr. G encounters an autopsy so challenging that it demands every bit of her attention and focus.
Oh my, there's something wrong here. Oh my, you see what we find under that. When I take off her shorts, she's got kind of an adult-style diaper on, held together with duct tape. Why is she not taking care of herself? Why is she looking like this? Something is really wrong with this woman. What's going on here? She looks terrible on the outside, and I'm wondering, what does she look like on the inside? How many do we end up doing? 6 cases, right? 4 full autopsies?
Yes.
Oftentimes in forensics, you come across cases that have misleading circumstances. But you ultimately have to let the body speak to you. I love how an autopsy can give you just unexpected answers sometimes. And that's what makes this job great. It's the surprises.
Despite the seemingly simple circumstances of her next case, Dr. G knows she must dig deeper to find the answers.
He fell and he hit the ground. But did he have some kind of physical illness that affected him? Or did he just slip and fall?
Next, Dr. G begins slicing through the brain tissue itself, looking for any signs of trauma or natural disease.
When I cut his brain, he's got 2 little, what we would call lacunar infarcts. It's basically a tiny little stroke. This guy was not gonna live to a ripe old age, I don't think. Now, they're sometimes considered associated with high blood pressure or diabetes, but nobody really knows truly what causes those.
It's a suspicious discovery, But as Dr. G examines the tissue more closely, she can see that the damage is not recent.
They appeared that they'd been there for a while. So his lacunar infarcts are probably not the reason he fell off of that ladder. So next, since his head isn't giving us the answer, we need to do the rest of the autopsy.
As a next step, Dr. G slices through the muscle and into the coronary arteries.
The left coronary artery has a 75% narrowing by atherosclerotic plaque. But it gets worse. The left anterior descending that has a 90% narrowing, and then the circumflex coronary artery has about an 80% narrowing.
And as her scalpel cuts into Leo's last remaining artery, Dr. G discovers what could be the smoking gun.
Wow. This is a man that was a ticking time bomb.
Welcome to Always True Crime, a podcast network bringing you gripping real-life stories that you won't be able to stop thinking about. Discover your next true crime obsession at alwaystruecrime.com.
Who was the most corrupt officer in the Met and the City of London Police? Find out on Murder Mile. Today, I'm standing outside of Great Ormond Street Hospital in Bloomsbury, WC1. 3 streets north of Kai Soo Kim, the sadistic Korean landlord who tortured his tenants. 2 streets northeast of the killing of Gene Stafford. The same building where the Camden Ripper was arrested. And the street where a blotto Russian spy blabbed a little bit too much about his secret. Coming soon to Murder Mile. If you hate the sound of kids crying, because the stupid, snot-covered little git has got something stuck up his nose, his ear, his eye, his arsehole, or any available orifice not currently being blocked by a toy, a jelly tot, or a car key, then avoid Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital. Yes, they do amazing work for sick children, but where there's misery and grief, there's always someone who's there to exploit it. I'm talking about chuggers, charity muggers, those bored buggers who pester you into donating £20 a month via direct debit, even though only part of what you pay, if any. In 2012, the BBC launched the TV drama series Line of Duty, a police procedural following the exploits of AC-12, Anti-Corruption Unit 12, based on the Metropolitan Police's A10. Established in 1971 to root out corruption within the police force. Currently filming, this 7th series of Line of Duty will unravel the conundrum of who is H, the police's highest-ranking corrupt officer, who many believe is fictional. But he wasn't. He was real. Across the mid-1970s, security vans were being successfully robbed in the Met and the City of London at a rate of 1 every 11 days. And being well organised and professional, few felons were ever caught. On Monday the 3rd of May 1976, as they did every week, on the 3rd floor, deep within the Daily Express newspaper offices on Fleet Street, 2 guards for Securicor unloaded 8 sacks containing the weekly payroll of £175,000, roughly £1.7 million today, behind the secure doors of the cashier's office. It was signed for, and the 12 workers were already ready to dole it out, being in an era where many staff were still paid in cash. The delivery was as routine as it had been so many times before, until a second set of guards arrived. Wearing identical dark blue overalls, black boots, crash helmets with the Securicor logo on, and their faces obscured by realistic wigs and beards. Brandishing shotguns and pistols, the fake security guards burst into the payroll office, shouted, "It's a raid!" and ushered the staff to raise their hands as they grabbed the cash. 2 real security guards barricaded themselves in the conference room with a £20,000 bag of cash. But the fake team weren't here to haggle, and within seconds, they'd calmly walked out with 7 full bags. The raiders were fast and professional. They each had a job to do. They executed it with precision, and they escaped the same way that they got in, by walking with purpose, down a maze of corridors to the back entrance, avoiding every locked door or guard. And nobody stopped them as they blended in. On Shoe Lane, they hopped into a transit van and sped north, switching to a faster getaway car, which were both later found burnt out. And although shotgun cartridges were found, and 2 detectives from the flying squad reported that they were chasing them through London, they all got away. The money was never found, no one was arrested, and it was so well planned, detectives assumed it was an inside job. But who? Someone at the newspaper, a security guard, or a cashier? They stole a fortune, but it wasn't a one-off robbery. 16 months later, on Tuesday the 27th of September 1977, just after 11 a.m, a Securicor van was pulling into Birchin Lane, EC3, a narrow side street just off Lombard Street in the City of London's banking district. Having just left the Bank of England on Threadneedle Street, 2 guards for Securicor were delivering £520,000, just over £5 million today, to the rear entrance of William & Glynn's Bank at 67 Lombard Street. As before, arriving in a similar transit van so as not to arouse suspicion, this robbery had been planned to perfection, but executed by a different gang of men in balaclavas for whom patience wasn't a virtue. What began as a professional heist by experienced robbers soon descended into a series of cock-ups. In the struggle, they shot one of the security guards in the leg. As he began to bleed out, they could only grab half of what was in the van, as their driver had already panicked and fled. Seeing their getaway vehicle speeding down Birchin Lane and leaving some of the robbers behind, witnesses were stunned as 3 masked men gave chase to their own transit van, dropping money, cartridges and revolvers in pursuit. Only the second the robbers caught up with the van, leaving a flurry of notes which swirled behind them. Typically their transit van got snarled up in the London traffic, and after just 50 yards, the gang split. One half into a Cortina, the other half into another transit van, firing shots as they fled, drawing a lot of attention. With the police nowhere to be seen, having been alerted to the attack, another Securicor van gave chase, rammed the Cortina with its bull bars, and with it buckled and broken, the raiders, one of whom was hanging out the rear doors and bleeding heavily, fled, leaving their cut of the money behind. With everyone in every building on Moorgate hearing the shots and watching this calamity unfold, the gang hijacked a chauffeur-driven Mercedes outside of the Fuji Bank, and as they fled again, shooting as the Securicor van kept ramming them and spilling even more money across the street. Their new getaway car, albeit broken, eventually made it to Southwark Bridge, and abandoning it under the railway arches, they hijacked a taxi at gunpoint, and the robbers finally vanished into thin air. Just not as rich as they could have been. With fingerprints, eyewitnesses, bloodstains, smashed cars and bullet holes littering the street, and security cameras at the Williams & Glyn Bank having filmed part of the attack, Flying Squad detectives reeled in all the usual suspects, and 6 men were arrested for assault, weapons charges and armed robbery. In court, it was the detective's duty to object to the robbers being given bail rather than being held on remand in prison. But they didn't, and one by one, all 6 of the suspects were released without charge. Witnesses were discredited, evidence fell apart, and although it looked as if the investigation had been bungled by the detectives, suspicion had been growing that the gang had been tipped off and aided by the police. But who? One bad apple or a whole bushel? For years, rumours had been circulating that the Met and City of London police were a criminal gang in its own right. A firm within a firm. Where bent coppers gave robbers bail, evidence vanished, charges were quashed, the innocent were fitted up for crimes they didn't commit, and junior officers were baptised into the bad practices of their corrupt seniors by taking a drink. Former City of London detective Lou Tassel said, when his commanding officer, DCI Philip Cuthbert, handed him £50, £350 today, he said, "I've got a drink for you, Lou." It was expected for me to accept it. It was part of the culture. The higher you went, the bigger the drink. As corruption was endemic. Word was it went right to the very top. But who was H? Since 1972, the A10 Anti-Corruption Unit had been rooting out bent coppers in two key departments in the police. The Flying Squad, who tackled armed robbery, and CID, who handled drugs, murder, fraud and organised crime, with both having a fearsome reputation for brutality by operating above the law. They knew how to fabricate evidence, to silence witnesses, and corruption existed within a culture of silence. Just like the mafia, any copper who ratted out a bent officer to A10 would find themselves shunned by their pals, demoted by the boss, maimed by masked hoodlums, or taking a swim in a cement raincoat. Operation Countryman was a slow, fragmented, and politically sensitive internal investigation, which many resented. But in the early days, it had aided to the successful conviction of 3 bad apples. Detective Chief Superintendent Kenneth Dury, head of the Met Police's Flying Squad, was convicted on the 7th of July 1977 of 5 counts of corruption and sentenced to 8 years in prison. Living lavishly, far beyond his meagre salary, he regularly took big drinks from Jimmy Humphries, Soho's Caesar of porn, whether money, holidays or cars, in return for protecting his gang or influencing investigations. He was the Met Police's most senior officer jailed for corruption, along with Commander Wally Virgo and Detective Chief Superintendent Bill Moody of the Obscene Publications Squad, who pocketed £53,000 between them over 16 months. It proved that corruption wasn't at street level and that it went right to the top. 12 other officers were convicted and many more resigned. But he wasn't H. So who was? Someone at the top was pulling the strings and could destabilise any investigation. So a decision was made to move it away from A10, the Met's own anti-corruption unit. And with the City of London Police, a small force of just a few hundred officers tasked with protecting the City of London's financial district. As they didn't have their own anti-corruption unit, in 1973, seasoned detectives from regional forces like Hampshire, Devon and Cornwall, with no connections to the Met, the Flying Squad or the CID, were drafted in to investigate. It had begun as a rumour, not just from criminal informants, but lawyers, journalists and officers. And with political pressure mounting, Operation Countryman needed enough evidence to arrest the kingmaker in this corrupt house of cards, so that everyone else would fall and it wouldn't be seen as a whitewash. There was no respect by the Met or the City of London Police for the detectives at Operation Countryman, as in a piss take of the 1970s police drama The Sweeney, referencing their country bumpkin roots, they'd been nicknamed the Swede. In retort, these rural plots wore a squad tie which perfectly summed up their attitude. A small country mouse flicking the mid-digit to a hovering eagle, which was the Flying Squad's symbol. The officers of Operation Countryman weren't here to make friends, but arrests. and although the bent detectives of CID and the flying squad thought little of the bribes they were taking, as these armed payroll robberies were insured, it all came crashing down when blood was on their hands. On Wednesday the 31st of May 1978, at the offices of the Daily Mirror newspaper at 33 Hopen Circus, EC1, an 11-storey tower containing both the news offices and their printing presses, the weekly payroll of £197,000, roughly £2 million today, was being delivered by the green and yellow van of Security Express. At 11 a.m, as always, as the massive steel shutters were opened, 38-year-old Antonio Castro, known as Tony, drove the van into the loading bay. The shutters were closed and padlocked behind them. And inside, Tony and his colleague Mark oversaw its transfer into a wooden box by 2 Mirror Group security men. It was safe, secure, and out of sight. Or so they thought. In advance, 2 of the raiders had already got into the building, and being dressed in printers' overalls, they blended in. At 11:06 a.m, as the last bag was being unloaded from the van, they walked to the shutters, broke the padlocks with bolt cutters, opened them up, and as a stolen Mercedes roared in, the security manager recalled, "All hell broke loose." The walls echoed with shouting, shotguns were waved, and as the Mercedes skidded into position, the bodysuited bandits started hurling bags of cash into the boot. It started calmly enough, with hands held high, and the guards doing exactly what they were told in this heist which lasted barely 3 minutes. But as the Mirror's guards fought back and slammed one of the robbers' wrists into the box, it turned to chaos. Tony rushed forward, and as the robber spun on his heels, he was shot at point-blank range, just below the heart. With the boot full, the Mercedes roared into Hatton Gardens, and with the traffic light and not a single constable anywhere to be seen, as the alarms wailed in this area where several newspapers and banks had been robbed of a fortune in the last 3 years, they vanished into the distance. They dumped the Mercedes on Dorrington Street, wiped it clean, and switched over to a Rover 3500 parked in Leopold's Court, later found burnt out, with both cars previously stolen and hidden in the interim. The raid was professional and well planned, having gained entry to this secure building. They knew the timings of every delivery, and to ensure that their guns were small enough to hide inside their overalls but had the maximum of power, they modified long-barreled .45 caliber revolvers to shoot shotgun cartridges. The security guards gave excellent descriptions of the raiders, as printed in the Daily Mirror, alongside their photo fits and offering a £5,000 reward for information. The newspaper wanted names and blood. The next day, across their front page were splashed photos of the robbery and a mock-up of one of the robber's tattoos on his left arm.
3.5 inches long, a smiling sailor with a red hat and a red stripe across his chest.
As seen by Alistair Scott, whose lorry had blocked their path as he was making a delivery, and when the driver of the car shouted,
"Get that fucking motor out of my way!"
Alistair went to give him a mouthful, but seeing their guns, he reversed his lorry back, and the Mercedes roared down Brooks Market. It would have been, at this point, with the robbers having got away scot-free, if they'd been arrested by an enterprising young officer with a name to make. The bent officers could have lent on the witness, fabricated any evidence, and for a sizable fee of around £50,000, if they had ended up in court, the dodgy detectives could have ensured that they were bailed, and any charges were dropped. But with a murder charge now hanging over them, that's a lot harder to do. 38-year-old Antonio Castro, Tony to his pals, was a former Spanish soldier who came from Carballo in the northwest of Spain. In 1965, He and his wife Carmen came to the UK with a plan to stay for a year. But as Carmen later said, "We liked England from the beginning. We thought the land was like magic." With his wife working as domestic staff while she was training to be a nurse, Tony was an orderly at East Grinstead Hospital, but always feeling that he wanted his life to have meaning and excitement. In 1974, he joined Security Express as an armoured vanguard and driver. It was a job he truly loved, and as Carmen said, that job was what he'd been looking for all of his life. But he knew it was dangerous. In 1976, 2 years before, Tony was shot in the ankle during a bank raid. His friends and his family asked him to quit, but as Mark, his fellow guard in the Daily Mirror robbery, said,
"He was one of the best. Tony loved danger. He was a brave man who could never stand by."
Even on a pitiful wage of just 84 pence an hour. He'd been a security guard for 7 years, and with Carmen now working as a nurse at St Bart's Hospital. Just 6 weeks before, they'd moved into their new terraced house in Wandsworth. It was to St Bart's that Tony was taken when he was shot, and where he died. Carmen was so shocked and distraught that she had to be sedated, with a friend stating,
"Tony and his wife knew that this day would come. We told him he should become a waiter, but he wouldn't listen. It was his job, his life."
One week later, feeling the pressure from the people, the politicians, and the newspapers to catch these criminals who always seem to evade justice, on the 5th of June 1978, police arrested William Tobin of Albion Street in Rotherhithe. The next day, William White of Aragon Towers in Deptford, and found a lockup full of wigs, masks, overalls, helmets, cutting tools, 2 pistols, and 6 sawn-off shotguns. On the 11th of June, 3 men, one of whom was already out on bail for armed robbery at the time of the heist, were charged with conspiracy to commit robbery. An investigation into murder was opened, and bail was refused. The detectives had everything they needed to convict all 3. But being leaned on from above, the ID parades proved fruitless, evidence was misplaced, paperwork went missing, and although they'd been charged, all 3 were subsequently bailed and released. But who had the power to derail an investigation and to reroute constables on the beat? It was said that on the day of the Daily Mirror robbery, the officers who should have been guarding the financial district at that time had been sent to Wood Green Police Station, 7 miles north, for a forensics course. At around noon, being handed a note reporting the robbery, the officer hosting the course beamed a broad smile. He was the 3rd highest ranking officer in the City of London Police, and a respected veteran who'd been awarded the Queen's Police Medal. He was Commander Hugh Moore. Operation Countryman were investigating allegations against 84 Met officers and 29 from the City of London Police, accused of bribery, planting evidence, and conspiring with robbers and facilitating false bail. But how could they get to him? What they needed was a senior officer who was ready to crumble. Detective Chief Inspector Philip Cuthbert was the commanding officer of the CID in the City of London Police. Based out of Bishopsgate Police Station, the epicentre of the Financial Square Miles corruption, which was ran by Commander Hugh Moore, Cuthbert openly spoke about how
taking a drink was a way of life,
with officers helping themselves to confiscated goods and making a fortune out of crime. Cuthbert also dealt with Alf Shepherd, a seemingly respectable shopkeeper who acted as a middleman between the coppers and the criminals, who covertly, in a cafe near the Bishopsgate Police Station, passed a lot of dirty money back and forth to ensure that dangerous men walked free from justice. DCI Cuthbert was cocky, brash, and heavily indoctrinated in the ways that being a bent copper was a good money-making wheeze. In 1978, he tried to bribe DCI John Simmons, the new head of CID for the City of London Police, who was formerly part of the Metropolitan Police's A10 anti-corruption unit. John was clean as a whistle, honest as a nun, and as they say,
once A10, always A10.
He loved his job. He despised corruption within, but with Cuthbert being his supposed friend, he got him to talk, but he needed it on tape. On the 27th of September 1978, DCI Simmons invited DCI Cuthbert to the pub for a few pints to chat about the job, the cases, and the investigation, but mostly to grumble about their bosses. Across the next 3 hours, Cuthbert thought that John was a sympathetic ear, but having been fitted with a microphone, he expertly steered the conversation to corruption and recorded a wealth of damning evidence. On tape, Cuthbert said,
CID received silly 50s. All the fucking evidence we gave was bent. I tell you, big drinks came in the robbery squad when they nicked Roberts,
who they'd released for the Williams and Glenn job.
We told them to give him a straight run,
meaning to drop the charges, and with corruption starting at the very top of the tree, Operation Countryman was getting nearer to H, and Cuthbert was getting nervous. On the tape, Cuthbert said that he feared
Commander Moore was trying to make me the patsy. I've been set up.
And that Moore was
the greatest unsung villain in London. He's a greedy bastard.
Cuthbert blabbed about everyone. Ginger Dixon, Scotland Yard's head of the robbery squad.
I used to bung Roy York, and it'd go right up the fucking tree, all the way up to the ACs.
The assistant commissioners. As for the robberies,
Moore did the Daily Express job, and I know what he copped on it.
In the Williams and Glynn job,
he told the city force not to fabricate verbal admissions against them, but just to give them a clean run. Moore received about £20,000 for allowing bail during the Express investigation.
Cuthbert stated,
Huey's run Bishopsgate and half of the city police for years and years and years.
And when pressed on how much money he may have made, Cuthbert said,
I heard word of between 60 to 90 grand.
With a confession on tape, DCI Cuthbert was suspended awaiting trial, and with Operation Countryman expanded, their ultimate prize wasn't the detective sergeant and the 3 detective constables they'd charged so far, but the big boss at the top who was controlling all of the police's corruption. H. It was then that everything started to collapse. Some blamed the fact that Operation Countryman was ran by inexperienced regional detectives not used to big city ways. Others blamed the fact that the Met obstructed the investigation at every turn. On the 8th of February 1980, the Director of Public Prosecutions offered no evidence against DCI Cuthbert and he walked free from court. They denied immunity for any officers who'd cooperated in the investigation, and Operation Countryman was handed to CIB2, Scotland Yard's very own anti-corruption team, formerly known as A10. The investigation was wound down, convictions were quashed, and even though Sir Peter Matthews, Chief Constable of Surrey, resigned in protest, as CIB2 was not holding an independent investigation, Detective Chief Inspector Patrick Kavanagh of the Met stated,
Corruption in the police is unfounded.
All the witness statements were seized, and in 1982, following the trial of DCI Philip Cuthbert and ex-Detective Sergeant John Goldborn, in a show trial which many claimed was little more than an excuse to lay the blame on 2 officers, as if they were lone bad apples, Goldborn was sentenced to 2 years in prison, Cuthbert to 3 years, and with that, Operation Countryman ceased to exist. James Miskin QC said at the trial,
Justice in England has been for countless years the admiration of the free world, and corruption by police officers strikes at its very roots.
But across the 6-week trial, Cuthbert was accused of selling bail to the 6 men arrested for the Williams and Glynn robbery for £10,000 a head, Whoa. Oh, dear. It's been a couple of weeks since I've recorded an episode. And it's always a hard one getting back to it. A hard one. Well, welcome to Extra Mile, everyone, the unscripted, unedited bit. So I'm just removing my pop filter in front of the microphone. I'm just taking off your little hat. There we go. So we can have a chat. Hope you're all good. Oh, dear. Oh, it's been a long time. It may not seem a long time to you because it's probably been a week, but I've had a lot going on. So I powered ahead with all my episodes. Hence the episodes you listened to before. I did loads of them in a bulk. And then I spent a good couple of weeks doing the research for these next 6 episodes because I'm gearing up, because me and Paul, True Crime Enthusiasts, are doing another multi-parter coming soon, which we're very excited about. So that's all good, but I wanted to make sure I got time for that and all my boat stuff as well. I've done all my repairs to the boat, done all the modifications ready for the big journey, which is great. Engine got serviced, that was all good. I've installed some solar panels. I've just installed 5G Wi-Fi, which was a bloody nightmare to install, but it's on boats, everything is complicated. Nothing is simple. Nothing is bespoke. You can't just buy something and put it on the boat. It's not like in a house. Nothing is designed that way. So everything you have to think around it. So it's a real nightmare. But everything's done now, I think. I just had a day when I powered up my phone and my iPad and my laptop using the sun, which was great. So I didn't have to use any power, so that's good. So yeah, we're moving ahead. But I've moved into position. I'm in a nice quiet place. Before I was recording all my episodes not far from a major train line, which was really annoying. So I'd be talking and then I'd hear the train coming. I'd have to stop because otherwise you have the train going, and because you're on the waterway, it shakes the boat and it shakes the water and it shakes everything in the boat, and it's just annoying, and the microphone picks up all the sound. It's a real pig to get rid of the sound. So, but I've just had to catch-22. I've moved nearer the locks that they're fixing, so as of time of recording, they should be done. They should be done in 2.5 weeks. If they're not, I'm going to bloody scream at them, because they spent 7 weeks doing nothing, and it's really started to piss me off now. So I moved near it so I can keep an eye on it, and then I can hopefully get underway, which is exciting. The downside is I don't have good Wi-Fi here. It's nice and peaceful. There's no trains, there's no people walking by, there's the occasional jogger, which is fine. It's very quiet. There's no ducks, there's no coots, there's no swans. It's really quiet. And at night time it's really dark, which is great. And I'm right next to a pub as well, which is even better. I went there for a pint the other day and it was great. But it's no Wi-Fi, which is a real pain in the ass. Anyway, thank you to new Patreon subscribers. Thank you to Lauren Berry, Mimu Wammer, and Emily Taylor. So thank you to Lauren, Mimu, and Emily. Thank you very much. Also, thank you to Lucy Barr. It was my 50th birthday just gone on 18th of February. Lucy very kindly sent me some money to treat myself, so I did. I bought some foodie treats, and of course I had a pint as well. And because I went into this pub, and you have to sign in to do the Wi-Fi, they've sent me a thing saying thank you very much. Come back into the pub and have a free pint. Don't mind if I do. Pints were $7.50 a pint. You would think getting out of London, pints would be cheaper, but they're not cheaper. They're more. They just seem to be more expensive, or I seem to be in a posh area. Anyway, very frustrating. Right, let's do the quiz questions, and then we'll dive into some extra stuff that may not have made it into the episode. Let's dive into that now. Oh dear, my head is tired. It's 2:00. And in an hour and a half, I've got a conference call to do, and my head is hurting. Oh dear! Right, let's do this. Let's do the quiz questions. There's 8 answers at the end. Helicopter flying over. Lovely. Question number 1: what floor of the Daily Express building was the cashier's office? Question number 2: what lane did the Daily Express robbers flee down? So, what was the name of the lane? Question number 3, outside of the bank, Question number 3, outside of, my dyslexia is really, really playing up today. And I've got a headache. Question number 3, outside what bank was the chauffeur-driven Mercedes stolen? Question number 4. What phrase was used to describe the Met as a criminal gang? Question number 5. Name one of the regional police forces drafted in to work on Operation Countryman. So I mentioned 5, well, technically 4 counties. Name one of them. Question number 6. The Met referred to Operation Countryman by which nickname, which mocked a well-known 1970s police series and their country bumpkin roots? Question number 7. What was the emblem on their tie? And question number 8. Describe the tattoo, roughly, of one of the mirror robbers. It was the one that I mentioned. Right. Let's dive into the details on this. This is one of those cases that I've wanted to do for ages. It has been on the cards for a long time. And, yeah, it's just something that I always found interesting. Obviously, we've got something coming up soon that is going to involve police corruption. So what I always like to do is, rather than just jumping into a case, if I know that something is coming up, I always try and layer the series with kind of important cases that I think can kind of lead to things like this. And Countryman was always something that I found interesting. I always worried that I couldn't make it work because there wasn't murders in it, because this is Murder Mile, therefore there should be murders in it, but obviously there is a murder in it, so with the third robbery, so that's why this kind of became important. And I just like this whole era of the whole police corruption, and especially being a fan of the TV series Line of Duty as well. Good series. Can't wait for the new series. I hope that they nail it. I hope that apparently Robert Carlyle is in it. Do you know they always have the kind of the guest star who's in every series, and you know, you had the fabulous Stephen Graham and what's her name who's the same age as me, which is who's in series 2. Oh god, she's great. And Kelly MacDonald, she was really good as well. And oh god, I forgot all the cast are in there, excellent. Anyway, they got Robert Carlyle in the final series, and because the finale, everyone agrees that the finale of the last one was meant to, I think they thought it was going to be like Usual Suspects, where I can't remember the name of the character. He's the Brummy character who acts a bit thick and is a bit useless, and apparently he's meant to be the big boss of it, and everyone was just like, no, it doesn't work. So quite rightly they're going to come back, and I think they're going to go take us right back to the start, where with the big boss, I can't remember his name, the Welsh guy. See, I'm going to have to rewatch the series. If you haven't watched Line of Duty, really do watch it. It really is a good series. Yeah. Sorry, I'm meant to be diving into this. My brain is fried at the moment. It really is fried. Williams and Glyn Bank. I'd never heard of Williams and Glyn Bank. Apparently, it was quite a biggie. And apparently, there's talk of Williams and Glyn Bank coming back at the moment, because we're losing a lot of our high street banks at the moment. And I think this is potentially going to be one of those high street banks that may come back. As you can see with these robberies as well, they know exactly what to do. This isn't like there's loads of robberies that go on all the time, and sometimes it seems spur of the moment, and sometimes they go like, oh, there's a van and we're going to stop the van and we're going to pull out our guns, we're going to give me all your money. But as you can see with this one, with the Daily Express one, they know exactly what floor to go in. This is what was fascinating, is that the cashier's office had locked doors that they couldn't get access to, and it was guarded by staff. So they knew, even though this is a massive building, they knew that there was a maze of corridors, and they knew exactly how to get into the building and how to work their way around all of the corridors and avoid all of the locked doors and all the security and things like that. So I thought that was really fascinating, that they knew exactly what they were doing, they knew what to wear, they knew how to act, they knew how to walk out looking like they're just security guards, and no one really acknowledged them. So that was pretty amazing. They obviously had their getaway car outside, and they were using a transit van which was disguised to look like a Securicorps van. So obviously if police walked past, they would just, they wouldn't acknowledge it. So I got burpees. Obviously the second one, which was the Williams and Glyn Bank, that went absolutely tits up. I've tried to put in everything that I can about that case in there, but as you can see, it's not that all of these robberies were done by the same people. They were done by some of the same people, but quite a lot of different people as well. But that's because the corrupt officers had their fingers in a lot of pies, so there was a lot of it's not like they had one criminal family and they were just like, okay, we'll protect you. There was lots of criminal families, lots of different criminals, and they were protecting them all and making sure they all got away scot-free. So some of these are the same robbers, but they're also different robbers as well. Interestingly, with the Williams and Glyn Bank one, even though this was mid-1970s, it was caught. Some of it was caught on security cameras. This is, let's not forget, this is 50 years ago. So this isn't an era where there was a lot of security cameras everywhere, like we have now, like everyone has a camera. Back then, it was a rarity, and it would either be on crappy tape or on film. So wouldn't be great. But yeah, because this was the entrance to the William Glyn, which was part of their bullet-weathered store bullion as well. Obviously, they spent the money on something that they really needed. And then, of course, that brings us to the Daily Mail robbery. 33 Holborn Circus, the Daily Mirror newspaper. Most of these buildings don't exist anymore. Don't forget, we live in an era, we've gone from an era where there's print media. Now, pretty much they don't need to anymore. And a lot of their journalists work from home, so they don't really need big old printing presses anymore. In these, if you think about the changes that we have now, like how many people actually get paid in cash anymore? I remember those days of being paid in cash where you get one of those little small brown envelopes, the tiny ones, and inside was your folded up pay slip, and you go, oh, this is how much I've earned. Oh shit, look how much tax they've ripped off me this time. And then you'd have your cash in there. And it was always funny because it would be exact, wouldn't it? It'd be like you'd have your pounds in there and then you'd have your coins as well. And you'd normally spend your coins immediately and then the cash. You go, wow, brilliant, great. All good in the shops. But now, obviously, everyone gets paid in online. Or, yeah. I went to go to a cash machine recently and I pulled out 50 quid. And I haven't taken out 50 quid for about 3 or 4 years. And the only reason I did it is because I'm on the canal and because I'm going to be travelling north, there'll be lots of places that I'll go to that may not have Wi-Fi. So I thought to myself, I'm going to need to have some notage on me. Not everyone is. I think that's the London way, isn't it? You live in a big city and you think that everyone still has Wi-Fi and everyone still uses cash card, but there's still lots of places that only rely on cash. So still holding on. So as you can see with the Daily Mail robbery, they knew exactly what to do. They knew not to rob on the outside. They knew, because obviously the van is armed, what you need to do is wait for the van to be opened up, but the van is only opened up on the inside, on the, I was going to call it the layabout. It's not the layabout, is it? Oh, I can't remember what's going on. My brain is fried. Inside, behind the security doors, behind the shutters, where everything's locked, they knew exactly what to do. They knew what to wear. They knew what type of outfits to wear in order to get into the print rooms. They knew that the security to get into the print rooms wasn't actually that secure because it's a print room. It's not like there's money in there, but once you're in, you can kind of work your way around. They made their way down to the area where the robbery would take place. They knew that it would be locked behind them. They knew they got a beige Mercedes stolen from Bexley Heath on the 26th of April. They also got a brand new Rover 3500, which was parked in Leopard's Court in Holborn, and they'd modified their service revolvers as well to be able to shoot shotgun cartridges. So they knew exactly what they were doing. They'd planned all of this out. So this does suggest that someone inside was feeding them all this information, someone who worked inside there, maybe someone who worked for security firms as well. But yeah, so clearly very, very professional, but it all goes wrong. It all goes horribly wrong. So of the men who committed it, obviously we don't know their names. There was the tattooed man. He was 30 to 35 years old, stockily built with dark hair. The getaway driver, 40, 6'2" with dark greying hair. One was 35, 5'6" with brown hair, wearing denims and a jacket during the escape. And the others were all wearing light blue boiler suits, which meant that they fitted in with the printers. Another man, 5'5", medium build, wearing a blue woolen hat. Well, you've got to. It can get cold sometimes. I think we've kind of covered everything we need to about Tony Castro. He's the victim in this who got murdered, came over here, lived a good life, worked really hard. He'd just moved in with his wife. She'd just become a nurse at St Bart's. He was taken to St Bart's Hospital when he was shot, but she wasn't at St Bart's when he arrived. She'd just finished her shift and she'd arrived home, and then she got a call that he'd been killed, and then she had to come and identify him. There was several of the security guards did a bit of a whip round, and they managed to get £5,000, which is around £50,000, to go towards her to kind of help her out with things like that. Oddly, his colleague Mark, so I know I said that this job is incredibly dangerous. His colleague Mark, who was in the van as well, and witnessed Tony's murder, he was robbed the following week. So he was pulling into the London Electricity Board depot on Valley Road in Streatham, delivering money, and the robbers got away with around £60,000. So he was robbed again. So yeah, a lot of robberies in and around that era. As you can see, the suspects were detained on this. There was one William Tobin, 26 of Albion Road in Rotherhithe, Anthony White, 34 of Aragon Towers in Deptford. These were known criminals, known robbers, and obviously they found the lock-up garage with all the stuff in. It's the person in charge of that investigation was Detective Superintendent Ernest Bransgrove, and he's not one of the corrupt officers that they were investigating. He was one of the good officers who was doing his job. Hence, he was able to kind of track down who they are. But obviously, the corrupt officers started leaning on him, and he was being lent on from a higher level. And that's the problem. Is that a lot of people who were the corrupt officers in this, and this is not to let them off with this, but a lot did say. As Lou Tansel, the detective in the City of London Police, said, he said at the start, like, you're given 50 quid, aka a drink from your boss, and it's not really said what. It's not like he says, here's 50 quid, this is what you're going to do for this 50 quid. It's like, here you go, son, here's 50 quid. The boss gives you 50 quid, what are you meant to do? Lou actually went, when he was finally investigated, he actually went to the higher-ups and he said, I was given this money, but what am I meant to do? Boss gives it to me, all the other guys are taking it, who can I go to? I can't go to my boss because my boss is corrupt, and how do I not know that the next one up is corrupt as well? And if you do that, you're going to lose your job. No one's going to talk to you anymore. You're going to be ushered out, as happened to DCI Simmons, who was the kind of the whistleblower on this. He did a great thing, but he was ushered out by the third in command of the police at that time. So it's a difficult situation. Obviously some were there just filling their pockets, but others, what are you going to do? Just scrolling down. We're not going to go into Kenneth Drury. There's a lot you can explore. I was going to do a whole thing about Kenneth Drury and his connections to Jimmy Humphries, one of Britain's leading pornographers, the Emperor of Porn, and the Tsar and the Caesar of Soho. We've kind of done bits about Jimmy before, and I didn't want to dive into it. Also, Humphries had learned the ropes from his mentor Bernie Silver, who we've dealt with before as well. So, and I've covered bits about Commander Wally Virgo as well. He's going to crop up soon as well. There's a lot of bent officers. There's lots that I just don't want to dive back into that could be quite boring. Also, there's quiz questions in there, and you know what it's like. You don't want me to balls up some quiz questions. There was a good documentary that was out about 2 years ago on the BBC about corruption within the Met, and I think their episode 3 was about Operation Countryman. So there's some interesting bits in there. This is the dubious thing about trying to pin anything down on Commander Hugh Moore. Obviously, all of these officers are ex-CID, ex-flying squad, so they know all the mistakes that all the criminals make and where they leave evidence and where they cock up, right? So these guys know exactly what to do, but they know what not to do. But also, if mistakes are made, they know how to cover it up as well. They know how to say, okay, this piece of evidence, it's going to go out the window, it's going to end up in the bin. This witness, we can dismiss him. We can say, you've got a witness, great. The witness is a criminal, therefore he can't be a decent witness. or they can lean on people. So they knew exactly what to do. And if you think about it, if it was just two corrupt officers, this would be easy to kind of find the details. But if it's endemic and it's within all of these different departments, and high or low, it's coming across all levels. And some people are obviously seriously into this corruption, and some people are just kind of like taking a couple of 50s here and there and go, yeah, boss, or I'll do whatever you say. It makes it difficult, but especially if you got someone like Commander Hugh Moore right at the top. And obviously, I hate to use the word, no one's going to finger him, are they? No one's going to point to him and say, yeah, it came to him. Because if you think about it, if you do that to anyone in your department, you're going to lose your job, which means as an officer, you're going to lose your pension. You're going to lose everything you've worked for all of your life. And then what are you going to do? You're going to have to go out and get a crappy job somewhere. You can't retire at 50. You're going to have to work like the rest of us until the day you die. Commander Hugh Moore joined the police service in 1955. He did his national service in the Royal Air Force and the Royal Naval Volunteer Reserve. He was a member of CID, Criminal Investigation Department in the City of London Police, but also served in the City Fraud Office and the Regional Crime Squad, which is where Cuthbert also came from as well, DCI Cuthbert. And he was promoted through the ranks. As commander, he oversaw the investigation into something that we've covered before, the death of Roberto Calvi, a.k.a. God's Banker, in 1982. So you can go back and listen to that episode if you want to. He was also involved in investigations into the collapse of the Bank of Credit and the Commerce International, as well as the collapse of the Robert Maxwell Empire. And at that point, he was the third most senior man in the Met. So if you do go and watch Line of Duty, and they keep referencing to H, this is the person that he's meant to be based on. Whether he is, as Cuthbert said, a greedy bastard. Those are his words, not my words. We just don't know. Also, there was this was an era where a lot of police were in the Freemasons as well, and Cuthbert himself was a Freemason and master of his own lodge, and even DCI Simmons was in the Masons as well, apparently, but he gave up being a Freemason and didn't want anything to do with Cuthbert. He wanted to focus on the investigations, as said right at the start. Once A10, always A10. He was a very straight-laced officer. He hated all this corruption, and he wanted it to end, and he knew that he could use his skills in order to bring this down. So I would love to be able to listen to the original secret recordings that he did. Obviously 1970s, it's not going to be great quality, but for only 3 hours. 3 hours, you think about it. That's 3 hours. So you'd have to be changing tapes in between. You'd have to be going, you go to the bar and grab a pint, and they'd be like, oh shit, open up this giant cassette, take it out, pop in a new one. It'd be really annoying. It wouldn't be as like today, where you can just pop a phone on the table and just pretend it's not doing anything, but really it's recording. It's yeah. But apparently in that conversation, Cuthbert knew that he was going to be a patsy. He knew that, as he said, Commander Moore was going to wanted someone to take all the blame for everything that was going on. And what's the best way of doing it? Finding someone who's below you and just saying, right, this guy. So that's the way it ended there. I'm just having and as you can see, the second the investigation started getting near to Commander Moore, if indeed he was H, if indeed he was this senior person, everything started collapsing. Obviously, Operation Countryman had been expanded. It was really pushing forward. They'd only got one detective sergeant charged and 3 detective constables charged, so no one senior at that point, and they were getting nearer to Moore, but that's when everything starts collapsing. And as you can see, 18th of February 1988, the Director of Public Prosecutions protested against Cuthbert's arrest and decided that his department would offer no evidence against him. Meant to be independent. The Director of Public Prosecutions is meant to be independent and is not at this point. So, yeah. And this wasn't the entire police force going, oh, great, brilliant, oh, well, this is being shut down. A lot of people were really upset about this because, obviously, you know, when you work for a company, you want it, or an organisation, you want it to be honest, you want it to be seen as decent. Otherwise, it reflects badly on the rest of you. It's like, you know, when I worked for Woolworths years ago, there was our assistant manager was caught one day with her hand in the safe, and she'd taken out money, and there'd been a kind of cash issues before. So I think it was the office manager was there, kind of went to the boss, and then it went higher up, and then she was sacked. And then what did they do? I think she got sacked, and then she got moved to somewhere else. But then who did they hire as her replacement? It was her best friend, and her best friend started feeding information about our boss, who was a really good guy. Like I really liked him. He was really good and decent, and made sure that the office manager got sacked out of all of that. And it's just like, that was the problem, is that when you have one bad apple in there, it starts taking everyone down, and it really ruined the company. It really did. I'm not saying that's why Woolworths collapsed, but yeah, maybe it was. No, it wasn't. I think that's it. As we can see with the trial against Cuthbert collapsed, and then they re-brought it back. I really do think because they wanted, they had the tape. The public had been made aware of the secret tape that had happened and all the allegations that were on there. So they needed a sacrificial lamb, and there they had two. They had Detective Chief Inspector Philip Cuthbert, which is not to say that he wasn't a criminal. He was a criminal, but he wasn't the criminal. He was one of many criminals. But as they do, they always seem to find one person and they go, right, it'll be him. And ex-Detective Sergeant John Goulbourne, who was 38, they got between 2 to 3 years between them. And obviously they were kind of palmed off as look, these are the bad guys. We get these guys, we put them in prison. Great, job done. All corruption has been rooted out of the police. Thank you very much. Aren't we all golden? Oh, look, we're all wearing brilliant white uniforms. We're like angels. But as we know, corruption happens everywhere. It really does. I've just been listening to a book about Oleg Gordievsky, the Russians' double agent spy. It's really fascinating, and they're diving into Michael Foot, the MP, about whether he was a Russian agent as well, or Agent Boot as he was known, which is hilarious because his name's Michael Foot and they call him Agent Boot. But also all of the members of the miners' unions and people like that who were paid a hell of a lot of money by the Russians in order to make sure that strikes happened, which is fascinating. I didn't know that kind of angle on stuff. Anyway, I think that's it. I think that's all I have to say about that. Obviously, these files are going to be held until 2064, and I'll probably be dead by then. Eva will probably exhaust me to death by next week, I'm hoping. So, yeah. I don't think I won't be alive, and it'll be the same as the Epstein papers, won't it? It'll be redacted to flip, and most of it will be missing anyway. So I think it's all redundant. We'll get a version of it eventually at some point when 3 or 4 generations of people are dead, but we won't hear any about that. Anyway, let's dive into the quiz questions, and then I can shut up for a bit and get ready for my conference call. Oh, I'm excited for that. Question number 1. What floor of the Daily Express building was the cashier's office? It was on the 3rd floor. Question number 2. What lane did the Daily Express robbers flee down? It was Shoe Lane. Question number 3. Outside of what bank was the chauffeur-driven Mercedes stolen? It was the Bank of Fuji. Question number 4. What phrase was used to describe the Met as a criminal gang? It was a firm within a firm. Question number 5. Name one of the regional police forces drafted in to work on Operation Countryman. So those that I named in the episode: Hampshire, Devon and Cornwall, Northampton and Surrey. Question number 6. The Met referred to Operation Countryman by which nickname which mocked a well-known 1970s police series and their country bumpkin roots? Ha ha ha, it was called the Swede. That's not a bad joke, actually. Question number 7. What was the emblem on their ties? It was a small country mouse flicking the mid-digit to a hovering eagle, which was the flying squad's emblem. That's good. Question number 8. Describe the tattoo that one of the mirror robbers had. If you got any part of this right, well done. It was a 3.5-inch long of a smiling sailor in a red hat with a stripe across his chest. A red stripe across his chest. Why do criminals do that? Why do they go and get stupid effing tattoos and then commit robberies with their arms on show? Oh, look. Oh, this one says Mum. This one is a list of all the places where I've lived. This is my name and address. This is who you should contact when I'm arrested. Utter bellends. Anyway, I think that's it, folks. I think I'm done. I'm going to go and have me a cuppa, I think. Even though I'm off tea and coffee at the moment, I have been for a couple of months. Because of my hernia. Oh, joy. Look at me, I'm falling apart. Anyway, I can have herbal teas and that's all I'm allowed. Anyway, have yourself a good week, folks. Stay safe, be good. If you enjoy the show, please leave a review. I think that's it. Have a good one. Stay safe. Lots of love. Bye.
Want more true crime? This podcast and loads more are part of the Always True Crime Network. It's packed with box sets to binge and twisted tales you won't find anywhere else. Find your next podcast obsession at alwaystruecrime.com.